Thank you, Jen, for the warm introduction. I'm delighted to be joining you all here today, both those here in the room and everyone joining us virtually to mark International Women's Day. I would also like to extend my thanks to Auntie Violet for welcoming us to Ngunnawal country. She did apologise that she had to leave because she's on school pickup this afternoon. Dawara Nuna, Dawara Ngunnawal, Yangu Nala Wiri, Duni Manyin, Ngunnawal Wari, Dawara Wari, Ningara Dindi, Wangara Lili, Jinyan. I too would like to begin by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Ngunnawal people's continued custodianship of the country on which we live, work and gather today is integral to creating the sustainable future that everyone in this room is striving towards. I also extend my respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, both in the room and joining us virtually. I was appointed as Australia's Ambassador for Women and Girls just over a month ago. My role is to proudly and loudly champion Australia's commitment to achieving gender equality and human rights of women and girls through diplomatic, development and regional engagement. I've taken on this role at a time of disasters, the COVID-19 pandemic, conflict, war and instability. Clearly a challenge, but one that I am ready to face, knowing that every person pausing for International Women's Day has also embraced this challenge. Together this year, we are reflecting on how we have been changing climates for gender equality as needed for a sustainable future. There are countless women and girls who deserve recognition for their efforts and sacrifices in leading the charge on climate change adaptation, mitigation and response. I acknowledge the incredible women and girls around the world who are building sustainable and resilient tomorrows, and doing so in the face of gender-based discrimination, of barriers to their equal access to and control of natural resources, of exclusion from the official decision-making processes, and of the time-consuming, unpaid work that sustains our lives. Alongside the evidence that shocks like disasters, pandemic and conflict disproportionately impacting women and girls, it is equally apparent that women are not vulnerable victims. Women and girls are agents of change, of equity, justice and human rights. Today we can remind ourselves and the rest of the world that we must dismantle the systemic and socio-cultural inequalities that oppress and replace them with options and opportunities for women and girls alongside men and boys to shape fair futures. In light of this, I would like to share some of the measures Australia has taken to address the inequalities faced by women and girls in the context of our changing climates. DFAT, Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, annually contributes $1.3 billion to support gender equality across its development program. One of the initiatives within DFAT's development program is support for the Women's International Network on Disaster Risk Reduction. In partnership with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, this initiative develops, supports and promotes women's leadership in disaster risk management through the establishment of a professional network of women in the Asia-Pacific region. With our Indo-Pacific neighbours particularly impacted by changes in climate, extreme weather events and disasters, Australia has partnered with UN Women on the Women's Resilience to Disasters program. Implemented in the Pacific, this multi-million-dollar partnership is designed to empower women in Fiji, Kiribati and Vanuatu to lead Pacific solutions to disaster prevention, preparedness and recovery. As part of this program, Australia was pleased to support the launch of the Global Women's Resilience to Disaster Knowledge Hub just last month. The WRD Knowledge Hub brings together traditionally separate communities to share knowledge and good practices. And containing a wealth of resources, the WRD Knowledge Hub can help countries secure gender-responsive disaster risk reduction policy frameworks, processes and practices, placing women's leadership centre stage. I encourage everyone to access the WRD Knowledge Hub with its searchable library of resources and publications, policy tracker that identifies national and regional progress on gender-responsive policy and planning frameworks, and the WRD Community of Practice with blogs, case studies, webinars, and training supported by experts from the WRD Expert Register. The Women's Resilience to Disasters program is one example of how Australia delivers on its commitment to progressing gender equality and women's empowerment. We also work in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change to strengthen the perspectives and representation of women in international climate change bodies. This has included Australia's support to training women UNFCCC negotiators, particularly from the Pacific Island countries. So turning from DFAT for a moment and my current role as Ambassador for Women and Girls, I wanted to take this opportunity to share a personal experience and the lessons that have stuck with me. During my first visit as Defence Advisor to the Cook Islands for Defence Cooperation Program talks, I was struck that there were no women in the maritime wing of the Cook Islands Police Service. The police service operate their Pacific Patrol boat that was gifted by Australia. I quizzed the police commissioner on the reasons for their absence from the team. His response, "I don't think they want to join." Can I talk to them? He generously called in all of the policewomen, even those off watch, for the meeting with me the following day. He gave me a very generous introduction and left me to speak with the policewomen on my own. They were a little intimidated by my uniform with all of the Defence Advisor bling, and to my sisters in uniform, just add a bit more bling. And they were reluctant to open up. I shared who I was, not what I was, and tried to become relatable. The clincher was offering to use my position and privilege to help them. The questions started to flow and we covered everything from ability to swim, childcare and workforce rotation in and out of the maritime wing. I encouraged them to identify a buddy as the new Guardian-class patrol boat, which they will shortly take delivery of, were intentionally designed with some 2 berth cabins to allow women to feel safer on board. I left them with my whakatauki, my Māori proverb. Kia hiku, e ngā waka, koutou ki te tai e pari ana. In English, a rising tide lifts all boats. In their case, it conveyed, make sure you bring your sisters with you. There are now 2 women serving in the maritime wing of the Cook Islands Police Service, and I am confident they will encourage others to follow them. Here, today, we reflect on our personal experiences and this year's focus for International Women's Day, in the knowledge that women and girls elsewhere are fighting for their lives and for the ability to choose how to live their lives. Conflicts like climate change and COVID impact the lives of women and girls differently and significantly. We have witnessed this in Afghanistan and what is unfolding in Ukraine. Having spent much of my life serving in Australia's military, I can attest to the life-saving and life-changing significance of seeing women working with women and ensuring women are at the negotiation tables. We most definitely need to change climates of conflict for ones of peace and security, making full implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda indispensable. Gender equality is not yet a reality, but it can be. We know that conversations, resources, shared responsibilities, accountability and persistence are needed. We owe it to those who paved the way before us to do what we can to ensure the path that we leave behind us is easier for our sisters who follow. We owe it to the men and boys who are disadvantaged by patriarchal structures and heteronormative stereotypes, as gender equality means a more equal society for all. We owe it to the women in the Pacific fighting for gender equality where they live, work and lead for a more equal and sustainable tomorrow. This International Women's Day, I invite us all to think about how we can change today's climates for gender equality and then act. Ending the discrimination experienced by women and girls is not optional. It is a matter of human rights and required for us to survive and thrive in changing environments. We must open every door for women and girls to ensure we can address current and future global challenges. Diversity is our biggest asset, and women and girls are absolutely critical agents of change. So, let's get on with it. Thank you.